This is WCTV Law Call.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Reinecke, and welcome to WCTV Law Call, where each week we discuss a different legal topic and take your questions live on the air. Tonight we're discussing DUIs. People who get behind the wheel after drinking open the door to some serious consequences. Even more sobering is the possibility of injuring or even killing someone in a drunk driving accident. Now, if you have a question about what a DUI can mean for the offender or the victim, give us a call. It's toll-free, 877-525-LAWS. That's 877-525-5297. Now, before we go to the phones, let's see what's on the schedule for the next few weeks. June 20th, we'll be focusing on summertime-related injuries. For Father's Day, June 25th, we'll be taking your questions on the topic of dad in the law. And on June 27th, we'll be discussing nursing home negligence. But joining me tonight is attorney Jimmy Fasig of the law firm Eubanks Barrett Fasig and Brooks. And Jimmy, what do people need to know about DUI?
Well, Frank, most important thing, don't drink and drive.
Okay.
There are so many tragedies out there. As a personal injury attorney, I see a lot of people coming in with losing loved ones at a very young age because somebody went out and drank and they drove. There are so many injuries, not just the people that are in other cars, but also the people in your own car or yourself can get injured as a result of a DUI. Ultimately, there are also legal consequences, and we have somebody, Don Pumphrey, who is he used to be a prosecutor, and now he is a criminal defense attorney, so he knows both sides of the coin, so we're very lucky to have him tonight. Don, welcome tonight. Well, I think one of the things that people want to know about DUIs is what are the standards, what are the elements of being charged with a DUI crime?
In Florida, under Florida Statute 316-193, which is the general statute, a person is driving or in actual physical control of a motor vehicle. And that's separated out. You don't actually have to be driving down the road. You can have the keys either in the ignition or readily accessible, and that satisfies the actual physical control element. Driving or in actual physical control of a motor vehicle while under the influence of an alcoholic beverage, controlled substance, and controlled substances can be prescribed medication as well. Many people don't understand that. And while doing so, you're under the influence of alcohol or medication or controlled substance to the extent your normal faculties are impaired.
All right, and we already have callers lined up on the phones, and we're going to our first caller from Tallahassee, and let's say good evening to Lori. How can we help you, Lori? Lori, can you turn your TV down and then we can talk to you?
Yes, I got that. I had a question because I think Mr. Pumphrey answered partly about the controlled substance thing. I had gone through my wild fuse drinking and driving and racked up 3 of them. Then I went 16 years, didn't get another one, and I had got a new medication, and I subsequently ended up in a wreck because of it, because I didn't realize that I had taken, something I wasn't really supposed to be driving on. So anyway, my bottom line is I got my 4th in 2005. And is there any action at all to maybe get like a reinstatement or, like hardship or something license back?
Okay.
If I follow the question, it's a valid question. A lot of people ask this question. In other words, after a history of having some kind of substance abuse issues, a person wants to know, can I get a hardship license or can I get a license? And the first answer to that question is it depends. Every case is absolutely different. There are some people who have medical conditions that may prevent that. It depends on the facts of your specific case. My best advice to you would be call the Bureau of Administrative Reviews at the Department of Motor Vehicles and ask for their position, because they'll be able to look at a lifetime driving history and explain to you exactly what your options are in getting another license.
So, Don, my understanding is that after the 4th, there's a revocation of the license, which means you can, which ultimately means, in general, you can't get your license back. But you're saying that there are certain exceptions to that?
There are certain exceptions. Many or a few years ago, we went through a window of opportunity for people who have permanent revocations. And those people, once notified and went through the department, were able to qualify for a hardship. So I think what the legislature is starting to learn is that there are people that don't need to be driving on the roadways, but there are those exceptions of people who have gotten their lives together and had addiction problems or other issues. And so there are exceptions to every rule.
Gotcha.
All right, we have another caller with us now, another caller from Tallahassee, and we have Marvin. What's on your mind this evening, Marvin?
Yes.
If you'll turn your TV down, we can talk to you.
Yes. I'm calling in regards to a question I have. I was at a cookout party not too long ago, and I got pretty intoxicated, and I was in my truck, and the next thing I realized, the police department was there and all, and so I was charged with DUI there because I don't know if it's because I had keys in the truck, but I was in a private driveway, is what I'm saying. And I was charged with DUI.
I think I know what you're asking, Marvin. I think it goes to the control element of the DUI offense. And so, Don, you want to talk a little bit about the element of being under control of the vehicle?
It's in Florida, it's called actual physical control, and there's actually an instruction that's given to the jury should you go to trial. But actual physical control can mean, for purposes of DUI, that the keys are in the ignition or they are readily accessible. And readily accessible has gone to the extreme. I know there's one case out there, a driving while license suspended case, where the individual was actually outside the car but had the keys and was readily accessible to drive the automobile. I think in Marvin's circumstance, it sounds like, Marvin, you may have tried to sleep it off in the vehicle, which is another issue. If the keys are readily accessible in his pocket where he can pull them out and crank up the car, satisfies the statute, pretty much going to get charged as a general rule. But one of the things that's interesting in researching it, there are a lot of people who will feel the effects of alcohol because of delayed reaction, and they'll pull off and they'll try to sleep it off. And you would think that's the responsible thing to do, but in Florida, if you're in actual physical control, you're going to get that charge. And there is a split of, there is some dissenting opinions throughout the state that implore the legislature to make an exception for those persons who are trying to do the right thing. Unfortunately, that hasn't occurred yet.
And ultimately, it comes down to a jury question, the question of whether or not somebody is in control of their vehicle. But the best advice would be, or at least I've heard the advice given, that if you are going to sleep it off in your car, put your keys in your trunk or put your keys somewhere where you don't actually have control of them. Is that good advice?
That'd be excellent advice. The best thing to do is leave the keys in the house, or leave them with someone else, but don't make them readily accessible.
Gotcha.
You get into a slippery slope with that, but best thing is get those keys away from it so that vehicle's not readily accessible.
Gotcha.
All right, we have another caller from Greenwood, Florida, and we're talking to Donald. And what would you like to ask of our attorneys, Donald?
Yes, I want to know, I had a friend who got DUI, but she wasn't under the influence and her car was parked.
Okay.
Okay, so my understanding, the caller, you're saying that you had a person who wasn't under the influence of an alcoholic beverage or controlled substance, but their vehicle was parked and they still got charged with a DUI. Is that, Jimmy, is that what you heard?
That's exactly what I heard.
And you see, I have seen cases before where people are charged with DUI and people have physiological problems. And what's normal faculties for Frank, what's normal faculties for Jimmy Fasig, may be different than normal faculties for Don Pumphrey. And so sometimes even the trained law enforcement officer will make a mistake. Law enforcement officers are human, and so if they saw a person that was acting strange, probably come to find out later this individual was either on medication, like a Dilantin or something for seizures that makes them lethargic and look slow and have the appearance of being impaired, and get arrested. And the officer's only choice is to do the breath test. It comes back all zeros. Then they request a urine. There could be a plethora of understandings. It could be that the young lady's just nervous.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be that.
And the thing to remember about the DUI is the state still has to prove that whoever's being charged with the DUI is guilty of a DUI offense. So it all comes down to the evidence, and what they generally do is they ask you to blow into a breathalyzer, or they ask you to do a field sobriety test. So we don't know the facts, all the facts surrounding this case as to why she was actually ultimately charged with the DUI, but the state still has to prove its case, and that's why they have attorneys like Don to come in and defend people who have been charged with DUI.
And just to make clear, I don't work for the state anymore.
Right.
I did that back in a younger life.
Yeah.
All right, if you have questions dealing with DUIs, do give us a call. We'll be right back right after you watch this.